Hello everyone. This was a good week of chapters, with most of our main heroes taking some sort of defeat in some way, shape, or form, and a lot of the arcs for most of the stories, they're starting to pick up towards the end of where they are. So we're going to be starting off with One Piece chapter 1043, and this was a good chapter, with it being confirmed that Luffy lost to Kaido. This was a pretty nice visual to see that Kaido won, and this pretty much leads to the loss for the Allies as a whole. We see that Kaido kills the CP0 agent, which was not very shocking, and he seemingly knew that was coming, and Kaido descends upon the rabble below and demands to see Momonosuke, having it that he knows he's won and just needs Momo to surrender. Of course, he is now saying the punishment to all the samurai is basically they will work for him forever, which isn't surprising. They lost this battle, this war. And him saying that Luffy died was always a bit of a silly thing to say, but Kaido won, so he gets to say it. We get to see the reaction to pretty much everyone who was important, from Law and Kid to Nami, Chopper, those all around got to hear that Luffy is dead. Nami is defiant and refuses to believe it. Even Kaido acknowledges her bravery, but still plans to kill her until Marco saves her. Chopper is a mess that Luffy lost, though I don't think he believes that Luffy is dead. And Law and Kid are cursing Luffy for losing, and now they're having to try to survive or go down swinging, knowing that things are about to get a lot worse before they get better. Then we see Momo wanting to surrender, thinking that will save his people, and Yamato puts him straight, saying that the servitude they would be forced under is not surviving. It is better for them to try to go out as best they can to save all the lives that they can, instead of just simply submitting. Momo, at least in his character arcs, probably still would have quit, and Yamato probably would have had a fight on their own. However, Momo gets word from Zunisha that Joy Boy has arrived, as we see Luffy is starting to seemingly melt, and he cracks a smile. Now, overall this chapter, I would give it an A. It was pretty great seeing the defeat of Luffy and Kaido the victor. Now, the big issue with this chapter is with Luffy, because this could go one of four fairly similar but distinct ways. You either go down the D. Grayman and several others route, where Joy Boy was secretly within Luffy the entire time, and with Luffy being dead, Joy Boy now comes out of Luffy's body and takes it over, being reincarnated into new form. And Luffy is in fact dead, but Joy Boy is now arrived. This would be horrendous and would break the entire story, from it being one of the best stories to being dreadful. Hopefully that's not the case, but I'm a bit pessimistic that it might be. The next one is that Joy Boy was like the nine-tailed fox in Naruto, living inside of Luffy, and now with Luffy in trouble, Joy Boy is now arriving to save the day, but Luffy is still alive, and now we have the similar Black Clover Naruto type of deal where a demon or some other entity is inside the main character and gives them a power-up. This is also awful, but less so than the other one in my opinion. Hopefully this one doesn't come true, because that would be absolutely ludicrous. Then the quote-unquote good options. Option 1 of these two. Option 3, I guess. You have it that Luffy has finally awakened his devil fruit in defeat. He has finally awakened it, and because his power is similar to that of Joy Boy, it triggered Zunisha, leading to more questions of how the Gum Gum fruit, this legendary fruit, just happened to be in the hands of Shanks and ended up being with Luffy. Adds more intrigue as a whole if that devil fruit is the one that was Joy Boy's fruit and not, say, Roger's or whatever. There's intrigue, but this is the first instance of Luffy awakening it. And then the final option is what I kind of think is the real one, And the more I looked and read and saw others' opinions on this chapter to a degree, the more I realized that everyone's pretty much focusing on this being an awakening, which is a good sign. And for me, I actually think Luffy had his awakened devil fruit the whole time, but was saving it for Shanks the whole way. Thought he could beat Kaido without it, but eventually it has turned out to be untrue. He can't defeat Kaido without it, and thus resorts to his awakened devil fruit, and again, it somehow has some sort of link to Joy Boy. Those are the 4 options I see, 2 of them being horrendous and 2 being fine. It does make the next chapter, which unfortunately is not next week, absolutely must read. I highly doubt Oda pulls a trick and goes away from this, because that would just be bad form on his part. That would really break up the story and cause a lot of people to really start mistrusting him even more than they already do. So the next chapter should be absolutely must read. Now we're on to Black Clover, chapter 326, and this was a good chapter showing that the final attack, quote unquote, that was supposed to stop Lucifero was having it that Yami and Noct were going to use sort of a duplication magic spell to both have dark magic to be able to slay Lucifero. This does not work, however, as Lucifero is still too powerful for everyone and seemingly impales the 2 of them after growing arms on his back or whatever. He gets rid of Yami and Noct. This leaves Libby in despair, and it's Asta who is able to drag him out of that despair, and they seemingly are able to form an even greater form of devil union to really grow stronger. They're able to block Lucifero's punch, and it looks like the second wave of fighting between the 2 of them is about to commence. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. The fighting was good, and Lucifero still being overly powerful is a lot of fun. Now, Black Clover is a very silly series and very fun in that way. It's not as infuriating as, say, My Hero, with a lot of its silly decision making. Some of it's bad, like the fact that Asta keeps going, but that's always been his character. Basically, at this point, he is the last bastion of hope in this arc. Could he win? Yes, he can. At this point, I'm leaning that that's where this is going to go. Lucifero will somehow be defeated, but his core will get away. The other demons will still run away, and everything will go as I said last week. However, I can see it that Lucifero wins, and then all the heroes have to scatter, and it becomes a big fight from behind. That would be very fun as well, as I don't think that he would kill all of humanity very quickly, as it seemingly was alluded to. He would more or less drag his feet just because he would be bored, and nothing can touch him. He destroyed all of the strongest mages, and it would be over. So win or lose, at this point, we have some interesting demon hunting to be had after this arc. But it looks like we have at least one final fight between Lucifero and Asta. Now we're on to Undead Unluck, chapter 102, and this was a good chapter, showing that Andy is continuously being a pest to God, who is seemingly the sun, or at least resides in the sun, and to a degree is getting annoyed by the fact that he has to keep making new rules because Andy is killing all of his rules. It even proclaims that Victor wasn't so bold as to do it, so now Undead must be shackled to a degree and dumbed down to stop messing with God's plan. Thus, God sends down God's punishment, or one of his minions, pretty much. The minion is a very powerful Uma of some kind called Seal, and their ability is that they can seal anyone in seemingly cloth and use their power. This new villain is more powerful than any we've seen thus far, and Andy is going to struggle mightily, as pretty much Andy gets beaten pretty good in this chapter by Seal, because Seal can do whatever it wants. Andy, of course, is able to keep up to a degree. However, it's going to be one hell of a hard-fought battle for him to succeed. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was good seeing a new foe arrive to challenge Andy at this particular point. point, as Andy was seemingly going to just cut through Uma after Uma as if they were nothing but walls in his path to get to what he actually wants, which is to get rid of Unruin. Where does this new villain lead us, however? It'll be interesting. Right now, it'll be that Andy and Seal fight one-on-one, and we'll see how strong Andy is. Full stop, against God ad nauseum. If Andy is able to defeat Seal by the end of this battle, that'll at least prove that Andy is very strong, and God will probably send a few more of his minions down to take care of him. However, I could see this fight being too much for him at this point, and he'll have to retreat tactfully to try to still get to Fuko, because he won't give up on that mission, but he'll have to use his negating tricks to try to outrun and outplay Seal. So the next few chapters should be pretty good, seeing how Andy stacks up to one of God's chosen. Now we're on to Mashle, Magic and Muscles, chapter 100, and this was actually a pretty good chapter, with Mash going one-on-one with Doom. We learned the hierarchy of Innocent Zero's quote-unquote family structure, as there are 5 siblings, with the eldest, Doom, being the strongest, and Demina, the youngest, being the weakest of these top 5 children of Innocent Zeros, which is a terrifying thought to even think about, as Demina himself was extremely powerful. But Doom is on an entirely different level, as Innocent Zero wants to give Mash a taste of just how outclassed he is, with Doom only using a fraction of his power. So the bulk of the chapter is Mash versus Doom in hand-to-hand combat, each one slightly powering themselves up as it goes. Eventually, Mash seemingly gets the upper hand and is about to punch Doom in the face, when Doom has to use his magic and gets the upper hand, being able to slash Mash, wounding him, saying that he was even shocked that he had to use his magic. So overall, I'd give this chapter a B. It was good to see this fight, and the fact that Mash still has a ways to go before he is unstoppable, because Doom was surprisingly very strong, as it is said that he was like the physically strongest of all of them, and he was able to go toe-to-toe with Mash, the absolute breaker of rules in terms of physical prowess. And to a degree, he still is, because he out-athleticismed Doom to a degree. Like, he was still more athletic than Doom, but Doom had magic, so he was able to use that to get the infinitely higher boost to himself. So I wonder how they're going to play out the next part of this fight, because I'm not quite sure if you have Mash win here, or if somehow he's saved by something. Like I said, at this point, I actually would like Demina to be a part of the crew to a degree. Will he? We'll have to see what the next chapter has in store. But for now, I assume that... Actually, I don't assume anything, because I actually don't know where this story is going. At this point, Mash has pretty much been defeated by Doom, and with Innocent Zero's arrival, there's not much any of them can do. Innocent Zero had said he would give over the wand of the beginning if Mash defeated Doom, so I could see Mash somehow pulling off the victory, but I'm not sure. So for now, this one I can't really predict. It's at one of those crossroads, like with One Piece, where whatever the next big decision in the next chapter decides what that decision is, then I can put down the road towards the next big decision. But for now, there's 2 options of he wins or he loses, and I'm very curious to see which option is chosen there. Now we're on to Sakamoto Days, chapter 62, and this was a good chapter, with the whole crew being able to meet up and continue to be somewhat close together, as they're starting to form a bit of bonds with one another, as the test-giving team has to figure out a way to do the 3rd test without having anyone really die, because too many of them died with the plane crash. Speaking of, the director is depressed and is now very sad because his camera got broken. So he's pretty much going to be out for this arc, as we're now entering the 3rd exam, which is basically flag football with tails, like the flags on your back, except tag in a way. You have to try to grab the flag off of the other person, the little tail thing on someone's back, and they're all put into different teams of 3. Sakamoto and Shin are separated, however, Shin is with the kid and Sakamoto is with the girl. Some more characters arrived, those of special recommendations. They're all very powerful, and one of them is seemingly a Sakamoto fan, having a keychain of him on her backpack. So now Sakamoto is in trouble, as now if he gets spotted, he'll be outed as Sakamoto. But I assume how that will go is that she won't recognize him because he's fat, which again will actually be rather funny. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was good seeing the continued development of this test and their tasks, as the characters are a little too nonchalant about everything, and it's actually just really funny how like depressed everyone is, except for Sakamoto and Shin, which is super funny. And again, I hope some of the characters that are really introduced here that are getting connected with Sakamoto and Shin stay around for a while. We also got to see that there is a traitor, quote unquote, in the mix of recruits, someone working for Slur. So that adds a wrinkle to these exams, as we'll see if Sakamoto and Shin ever find out, as well as to see who that traitor is and how many people he ends up recruiting for Slur, as Slur wants younger people in his crew. So for now, we have some interesting developments. This test will probably be interesting, as it's just the beginning of a new exam portion, as Sakamoto will continue to probably save the girl for the most part and protect his team to a degree while able to use their strengths to like win, kind of, but not get rid of Shin, whatever. It will all work out in Sakamoto's favor to a degree. We'll just have to see how well it works out in his favor. So that was all of the major chapters, and this week they were all pretty much showing major defeats for most of them outside of Sakamoto, but Sakamoto very rarely loses unless it's the Slur. We had One Piece and Black Clover having full-on defeats, but then hope at the end of their chapters. Mashle and Undead facing what seems to be indomitable forces, but not necessarily losing outright yet, though it looks like they're going to have an uphill battle. And Sakamoto is just being Sakamoto at this point, which is always fun. Now we're on to everything else, with My Hero being fine, Blue Box being fine, Mission Yazakura family was good, having more intrigue and inter-family problems, albeit them being solved within one chapter, with some great mystery going on. We then had The Elusive Samurai was good, with the main character seemingly finding his antithesis, and a strong war hero who helped the current emperor to be the emperor, and so the main character wants to learn from him so that he can be better himself and stronger to eventually overthrow the major villain of the story. That should be an interesting arc to explore, especially seeing as how things are about to completely blow up in their faces. P times 6 was pretty good itself, and from the looks of it, its sales are pretty good, so hopefully it survives a really long time. Because so far we have some intrigue with the fact that Lucky's little performance caused a lot of unnecessary attention upon both himself and his father, and Mimin, the sister, is still seemingly being scolded no matter what she does. We'll have to see how that unfolds, because there's some pretty interesting things going on within the universe, and Lucky should continue to get stronger to win this tournament competition. Ashimon was good as the second henchman of the main female character. The little guy, little monster thing that likes to go through ceilings, is able to prove himself quite capable of being powerful to a degree and being helpful by being able to defeat the person he was fighting by dropping all of the motorcycles on top of him through being able to move to the second floor of the overpass they were on. And Doron was again good, showing off quirky characters and a story that's familiar. I will say I really like the villain league that's sort of forming here from the different Mononoke monsters that are here in the villain sort of lair, and again different quirky personalities. it's very interesting. I look forward to seeing if it survives long enough to actually let them have some shine, or if it'll be over within the next few chapters and they have to defeat them within very quickly. But so far, most of the stories that are coming out are seemingly hitting, at least the ones I've read. I'm not actually as fearful as I once was if any of these are going to get canceled, at least for now. For all I know, next week all of them will get canceled and I'll have to look for something else to talk about. But yes, that is all of the chapters from everything in this week, and overall this was a very good week of chapters. Next week is seemingly a short week, so by the time I post this video, it'll probably be time to read the next set of chapters, which isn't a bad thing. Having an early week is fun. It's felt like a long while since we've had an early week, and so it'll be interesting to see. We won't have to wait too long for some of the answers we desire to find out, except for One Piece. There is no One Piece next week, which is a shame. So yes, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and as always, thank you for watching.